Honkai Star Rail is a gacha game by MiHoYo that was released worldwide in 2023. These days, it's available on mobile, PC, and select consoles. I personally play it on the PS5. Like most other Hoyo games, Honkai Star Rail became insanely popular and spread like, well, wildfire. This past spring, the game celebrated its 2-year anniversary, and to do that, Hoyoverse decided to put on a special concert event for fans of the series. It was announced that in the United States, there would be a special screening of the concert event at the Irvine Spectrum in California. Attendees would get a special swag bag with exclusive merch. But not to worry, if you couldn't get a ticket, you could still show up at the Spectrum and buy other merch at their pop-up store. Additionally, there would be a panel with the English voice actors roughly 2 hours before the first screening. And since the Spectrum isn't too far from me, I decided, what the heck? I'd try to go. Tickets were kind of wild to get, by the way. They were initially announced for April 10th, but later changed the sale date to the 9th. Super cool. And when they did go on sale, they were sold out in minutes. In fact, I didn't actually manage to get one myself, as they sold out while I was in the selection phase. My buddy 10, however, sort of accidentally got 2 tickets. So I just bought the second one off of her. I don't know how she does it, but she calls it K-pop strats. It's been a few weeks, but I wanted to talk about the event since I was actually able to attend. At least, attend some of it. But we'll get into that and why exactly I was only able to attend some later. Spoiler alert, it's kind of my fault, but also kind of the venues. And a restaurant which shall not be named. All in all, though, I think that while the event setup had its flaws, the people there on the ground did their absolute best to make everyone happy, and the fans who attended had a blast. So let's talk about it. The event was at the Irvine Spectrum, an outdoor mall in South Orange County. It's about an hour south of Los Angeles, and it's considered one of the nicest malls in the county in general. It's filled to the brim with a variety of different stores and a lot of different places to eat. I mean, they even have a Fogo de Chao, which my friends have dubbed the meat zone. The last time I went to one, it was with a group of my friends in Atlanta, and it was super fancy and expensive. They just came by and constantly gave you meat. This restaurant is in the Spectrum. Yeah, that's the kind of mall we're talking about. On a normal weekend, the Spectrum is crowded, and fortunately, with the event, it wasn't too much worse than that. Parking was relatively easy to find because I went earlier. But, well, there was a problem that weekend. You see, May in Southern California is kind of wild. The temperature and the weather and everything can fluctuate rapidly. The previous Saturday, for example, it was 61 degrees, which is 16 degrees Celsius. And it was also pouring down rain. But on May 10th, the day of the event, the temperature was 91 degrees. That's 33 degrees Celsius. And the sky was clear and blue, and boy, could you feel it. And the other thing is that the Spectrum is all outdoors, save for the shops. The facilities, outdoors. There's nowhere inside really to move things. So all the lines, panels, everything, outside, in the blistering heat. At the very least, I don't get why they didn't rent some tents to cover parts of their lines. At least the line for attendee stuff pickup. There was no shade for anyone, and I was really feeling it after standing in the bag pickup line. I can't even imagine the people in the merch line because that line wasn't kept and it wrapped around several different stores. I asked a guy how long he waited to get his stuff in the merch line, and he said, a couple of days. I don't think he was kidding. The line for attendees to pick up their bags wasn't that bad, to be honest, and the staff on site did a good job of keeping things moving as quickly as possible. I think the only issue was that the line was advertised to open at 11, but by the time I got there a little after 10, they'd already been giving out the bags, so cool. But my assumption there is that either the times weren't communicated well to the staff on site, or there were going to be crowding issues and someone made an executive decision, which, yeah, in that case, I'd agree with. And also, They had plenty of bags. It was fine. No one was going to not get their stuff. The voice actor panel was kind of a mess as well. I didn't attend it for reasons that I'll detail later, but I'd planned on kind of bailing anyway due to the heat. It was also outside. Apparently they ran out of water, and the sound system wasn't the best, which, as someone with impaired hearing, it's kind of a bummer to hear. Alejandro Saab, also known as Sayu, detailed his experiences with the event, and I'll link his video in the description below. Go check it out if you want to hear more about it, but it basically sounds like they had a lot of fun despite the issues. For the record, none of the blame is on the workers on the ground at the event. In fact, I feel like these guys went above and beyond and were the unsung heroes of it all. Someone should have planned it better at the top and really accounted for things like, blistering SoCal heat. But that's not on the people who were actually there working on site. Despite the weather conditions, they were always really nice, happy to answer questions, and just generally really good people. Thanks, guys. I especially appreciated the one worker at the swag bag table who saw that I was suffering from heat exhaustion despite chugging water and proceeded to give me more water unprompted. It was just nice knowing that people like that were there looking out for us. The swag bags themselves were wild. I don't know if pictures even properly show just how big the bags are. They're big, though. It came with 6 cards featuring all of the characters in the promo image. And the thing is, the promo pictures don't really do these cards justice. They're so shiny, and they're like tickets, so they have their own little ticket holders. I still haven't figured out what I want to do with all of mine, because the ticket holders are charming, but so is the art. Do I put them together and frame them? Hold out and find another way to display them? I gotta think about it. For now, they're tucked away in my desk drawer. We also got a little ticket of the full promo art, kind of like a bookmark. They also gave us a voucher for a free small drink and a small popcorn at the theater, which honestly is kind of sick. Do you even know how expensive that can be? It's pretty smart of the theater too. The vouchers don't expire, so someone can always use it later if need be. Like me, for reasons. In addition to that, there were some stickers and the Galactic Baseballer light stick. This thing is so cool. I didn't really understand how it worked at first, but once I did, I was charmed. We had a blast with them at the screening. And finally, the big draw, the Gotcha acrylic stand. Each bag had one acrylic stand of one of the characters featured in the promo picture. You didn't have a choice. Whoever you got, that was it. But all of the stands were really well made and high quality. I got super lucky and got the character I wanted off the rip, Acheron. She's gorgeous and now sits with some of my other stands. But for the people who didn't get the one they wanted, well, the community pulled through. Man, the community was so great at this event. Despite it being a bajillion degrees out, people still cosplayed, and they were amazing. I saw some really good cosplayers and got a few photos of my own. And it was admittedly very funny seeing them sit in the theater later on. Can you imagine being seated behind Pei Xiao? All the Fei Xiao cosplayers were really nice and either took off their ears before the screening started or were seated so that they weren't obstructing anyone's view. But it's still a funny thought. Anyway, I don't think the heat claimed any of them, though I did absolutely see a few with portable fans in line. The big thing, though, was that people were so open and willing to trade acrylic stands. There was a young lady in line who cosplayed Herta and naturally wanted to get her. And people became invested in making sure she'd get the Herta stand. But they weren't aggressive about it or anything. They'd just ask if people wanted to trade, and if they did, cool. But if not, hey, no worries. It was honestly really great to see people get what they wanted just by reaching out and asking each other. And it was kind of nice when someone went, "Hey, wait, you want to trade your Herta stand? She wants one." And then she got it. And most people in the lines and whatnot were really receptive to talking with others, even if they were people that they just met. While I was waiting for 10 in line, I ended up chatting up a bunch of people. Everyone was friendly and nice, and I kind of regret not getting some of their contact info when I had to dip from the line. All of that said, it was definitely obvious who was there just to resell the merch. It was kind of a bummer. I had a guy approach me and ask about trading acrylic stands. When I asked him who he was looking for, he told me he didn't know the series, he was just swapping. And the guy had 2 bags. I mean, I guess that's great that he's willing to trade with people on site, but I see the merch going for absurd amounts online. Damn, dude. As for my own experience, well, it was a mixed bag, and not just because of the event. I knew it would be hot, so I hydrated, applied a ton of sunscreen, and wore a hat. I got there a little after 10 since bags were going to be given out at 11, only to find out that the line had opened earlier. So I texted 10 and told her to come in while I held a place in line and hung out with a few different people. I was able to see a bunch of cosplayers at least and talk with people, so that was fun. The line moved fast enough that I had to dip out to the back a couple of times to wait for 10 since she actually had our tickets. It was extremely hot outside and our line was not covered, so despite my careful preparations, I was still feeling woozy. I had a small water bottle, but that didn't last very long. Like I mentioned earlier, a staffer gave me some water, and I am super grateful to her. I don't want to say I had heat stroke, but it was definitely heat exhaustion. So after we got our bags, we sat down for a bit and chatted with some friends while I recovered. And then we went to lunch. Look, I'm not going to go into the gory details, but let's just say that between the heat-induced sickness and scrambled eggs that were probably tossed into a microwave, I didn't have a good time at lunch, and I had to take a couple hours to recover. As a result, I missed the voice actors panel. But like I mentioned earlier, I probably wouldn't have gone anyway due to the heat and how crowded it was. So let's move on from my experience and talk about the actual concert showing itself. The concert was shown at the Regal Cinemas in the Spectrum. It's an okay theater. It's a decent choice given the area and everything. They booked the IMAX theater for their showings, which allegedly has around 300 or so seats. I'd believe that number anyway, based on what I saw. The seats weren't the comfiest in the world, but they were better than the regular theaters. I think I've just been spoiled by the AMCs around where I live. Once you got into the theater though, you could absolutely tell that people just bought the tickets to resell the merch because the seats were not all filled. In fact, one of the seats by me was empty, so I was able to dump my bag there. If you look at this picture from the official social media for Star Rail though, you can really see what I'm talking about. I mean, I wouldn't blame some people for dipping after getting their stuff given the heat and everything and just being exhausted. I certainly considered it. Or maybe they were still in the killer merch line. But that many people doing that? Nah, not gonna happen. The show itself was great though. It was the exact same concert that they put up on YouTube, but you were experiencing it in a group setting on a huge screen. I purposefully didn't watch any of it before the concert. Not even the 2 Robin songs. I think my favorite part were those 2 songs between those pieces about Sunday. Chevy's vocals are amazing, and If I Had Not Seen the Sun really gets to me. I loved Real's performance of No Dazzle, No Break too. We were encouraged to use our light sticks, and they were able to make the colors sync up with the show, which really added to the atmosphere. It did get a little too intense for me at one point, or maybe that was the microwaved rubber eggs talking. I don't really know. But that was just me. I think it was a fun addition, and it seemed like everyone in the theater had a blast. All in all, it was a great experience, and I'm really glad I stuck it out to the show. So to sum it all up, it was a good event. There were issues, yeah. Not that many tickets due to seating availability and the lack of cover outside that could have been really dangerous. But overall, it was a good event. The ticket price was more than reasonable given what you got, and it was just fun to get to hang out with a bunch of like-minded nerds. Would I go to an event like this in the future? Maybe. It would depend on the venue and the price point. I really hope that if Hoyo hosts more events over here, they consider things like weather conditions if they're outside. Still, it was good and fun, and it was a nice way to meet new people and collectively experience the concert. So, overall, yeah, it was a good time. Thank you guys so much for watching. If this is your first time seeing one of my videos, hi, I'm Jury, and I make videos and stream about a variety of things, from video essays to gacha pulls. If you like what I'm making, please consider subscribing and leave a comment. I'll see you guys in the next video.